Mattis's visit comes as nearly 350 migrants traveling in the caravan arrive in Tijuana, Mexico.
In Florida, 2 contested races are still undergoing recounts.
They've counted about 199,000 of 715,000 total ballots.
It's ridiculous. And Bill Nelson just needs to take a deep breath and concede.
The toll in human lives and property is growing.
Camp Fire has now torched 125,000 acres, making it the deadliest in history.
Apparently, Republicans are uneducated. That comment coming from a newly elected Democrat.
Tennessee's racist, period. Most of the Tennesseans who voted Republican are uneducated.
Controversial Christmas gift, to say the least. Keep and Bear is the name of the company. They released a building block set encouraging children to build the wall.
So grateful that you wake up with us every morning, that you choose us.
Yeah, and we've had one constant theme for the last month or so, and that is the Caravan, who's organized by a series of groups we think, we're not sure, who have marched up from Honduras, Guatemala, through Mexico, and are now, we understand, hitting San Diego and by the hundreds, and they could get up to over 11,000.
Well, they're not quite to San Diego yet. You can see that is the border wall. And yesterday, when 9 buses dropped folks off in Tijuana, then a number of them went over to take a look at the United States, and some of them actually climbed up on top of the wall, looked at the Border Patrol, and you can see the patrol guys in the background on the 4-wheelers back there. Some of the guys, as you can see right there, dropped down on American soil, and then when the Border Patrol approached them, they ran back and jumped over to the safety of Mexico.
Yeah, the buses dropped them off at this Catholic-run soup kitchen, and then they walked up to the wall, some of them. The soup kitchen's offering them food, and there's some shelters down there that are run by churches and civic organizations. The Border Patrol agents on the U.S. side of the beach in the trucks, 4-wheelers. There was a helicopter there, and you saw the horses.
Now, you know why we got all those prototypes down there in San Diego on walls that work? This is an example of a wall not working.
Well, it's too easy to climb up, and you can see there's some chain link fence in there as well. Apparently, the crossing from Mexico into the United States around Tijuana is going to be closed off and on for a couple of days because the Department of Defense is installing barbed wire. They're positioning barricades, and they're doing some fencing as well in anticipation of the Caravan. And there's some of the concertina wire right there. I don't think they thought that the Caravan would be here this quickly, but you know, they weren't marching. They jumped a bunch of buses, and they're here.
If you notice, the wall has the holes in it, and then there was a fence. So they were holding on to the posts in the wall, and then using their feet to push against the fence and climb all the way up. And they were sitting up there, just antagonizing the Border Patrol agents because they knew if they jumped down, then the Border Patrol agents were going to come and get them.
Right. So what about Central Americans? How many want to come here? Well, they did a study, and they wanted to find out how many have aspirations of coming here. How about the term 5 million? How does that sound? Central Americans wanting to pick up and move out and come here. So if people say, well, we have plenty of room, possibly. And do we have jobs open? Yes. But should there be an order and a system to refugees? And are there people waiting online through green cards in the proper way that are not going to enjoy it or don't think it's fair that people that want to waltz in illegally get precedence?
Yeah, those caravans represent a small fragment of the number of people who really want to come to the United States. Gallup did this poll, and they said there are really 5 million Central Americans that really want to be here, which is 1 out of every 3.
And apparently a number of the people have told reporters they like the idea of the Caravan because there's safety in numbers. When they go through Mexico, you know, they don't have to worry about the drug cartels or the gangs or corrupt officials in Mexico trying to shake them down for money. So they like this idea. But the key is, as the president said last week, if you want to come in the United States and apply for asylum, you got to do it through a port. They're at a port. It's not like they're out in the middle of nowhere just sneaking across the invisible border. It appears they're going to, at least some of them, ask for asylum.
It's a tough topic because you look at those pictures and you look at people that are in these big double-decker buses, and they're crammed in there, and their hands are coming out of the sides. It's hard to see those images because they're human beings. They're God's children, and it's hard. But you have to do it the right way, and we have to know who's coming in to protect the children who are here in America.
That's a lot better than walking. It looks like the Mexican government sent these buses to speed them up.
It's hard to see.
Right. But, I mean, that's their choice. This is their goal.
Right.
I mean, they had a life, and they wanted to come here and try for a new one. Unfortunately, they're not doing it the right way. part of reforming all laws, maybe make it easy for refugees to get here, maybe make it easier in their countries to apply, and then they get here through a normal transportation process. But just winging it because your country is not allowing you to reach your goals, or it's horrific with the gangs that are making it impossible for your family to live, whatever the situation is, this is not the way to solve it.
It'd be wonderful if there was some way that Americans could go down and help reform their communities and help build up their communities and make them stronger so that they would be safe when they live in these parts of Central America.
But we do have our own issues here in our country, right? And we already pay a ton of money.
We have plenty of them. Our Defense Secretary, James Mattis, is going to be at our southern border in Texas today. 7,000 troops, as we know, have been dispatched to the border. He's going to review things as well. This amid the fact that there are a number of stories floating around that it sounds like after the midterms there's going to be a shakeup in the administration. And in fact, there was a headline in Politico that says President Trump considers tough-talking former ICE director for DHS chief. Well, we just had the tough-talking former ICE director here on the program, and he was asked whether or not he would like Secretary Nielsen's job, which is rumored to be on the chopping block.
I've read the same stories. My phone blew up last night. We'll just wait and see what happens. But I think we got a secretary in place now. I think we need to support her. Secretary Nielsen for 7 months before I retired. It's a 24/7, 365 job. I mean, with the immigration, which 50% of America hates you 100% of the time. You can't win on this topic because it's so divisive, so controversial, so emotional. But I think she's working hard, doing a good job. If the president's going to make a change, I mean, that's certainly his prerogative. But I really don't want to speculate what the president's going to do.
Evidently, the Chief of Staff, former Secretary of Homeland Security, John Kelly, is gone to bat with her multiple times, sticking up for her, got in a fight with John Bolton because of that, if the reports are correct. And one of the people that might be moving on is the Chief of Staff, John Kelly. That's the strong rumor yesterday.
So, and reportedly, according to the Associated Press this morning, the president is upset between John Kelly and Kirstjen Nielsen because he would like to see more done at our southern border, and it simply is not happening. But at the same time, there are a number of other names that are perhaps people who may be moving on, like Wilbur Ross, the Secretary of Commerce. You got Ryan Zinke, the Secretary of Interior. And then yesterday, very publicly, the First Lady called for the firing of the Deputy National Security Advisor, Mira Rickold. How do you say the last name? I think that's something like that.
I don't know the exact pronunciation.
Ricardel. Maybe that's how it is. Anyway, as of this hour, we do not believe she has been fired, even though the First Lady did say she's got to go.
All right,
how extraordinary is it that the First Lady came out saying for...
You don't see that every day.
Yeah, you don't see that all the time.
Right.
But as she is also, John Bolton goes to bat for her because John Bolton brought her over.
All right, so we did Caravan, we did Homeland Security, cabinet positions, and now the other big thing that we're talking about this morning is down in Florida. The Florida ballot drama literally heating up.
The counting. Voting machines in Palm Beach County apparently overheated, delaying its recount. And then a judge offered a 5-day extension, but that is on ice right now.
So Griff Jenkins is live at the Broward County Office of Elections. Griff is covering this, and he's also happy to be indoors. Griff, you've had a lot of outdoor events covering hurricanes in the Caravan. This is a very impactful story, but it's indoors. You can work a
Even
thermostat.
though you still are away from your wife and your kids.
It's indoors where the machines in Broward County are working. Look at this, guys. They're sorting these ballots. They have counted some of them. They counted 199,000 out of 715,000 total, and they believe they're going to meet that deadline, according to the election supervisor, Dr. Brenda Snipes. Listen.
We won't miss that deadline. It's too critical. We won't miss it. All the emphasis, all the focus is on me. But I have a great staff who takes on any task, and their job is to get it done. So regardless to whether I'm here or someone else is here, there is an excellent foundation to this office.
In that deadline Thursday, many believe will lead to a hand-manual recount if it is a narrow margin, again under 1/4 percentage point. Meanwhile, the candidates hammering each other. Senator Nelson in D.C. with Senator Schumer. Here's what Nelson said.
Sadly, it's become clear that my opponent isn't interested in making sure that every lawful vote is counted.
Finally, Governor Scott fighting back on Twitter, saying it looks like Senator Nelson is cutting out the middleman and letting Chuck Schumer speak directly for him. Chuck, we won't let D.C. lawyers and New York senators steal this from the people of Florida. By the way, Senator Nelson and Governor Scott are both in D.C. If they cross paths, that'll be awkward, guys.
Yeah, it will be. No kidding. All right, Griff, thank you very much.
We were saying they need to do two pictures. One's in one picture, the other's in the other, and then they hang up the picture with the winner.
Ultimately, that will be decided, we hope, in the next couple of days. All right. Meanwhile, 7:10 here in New York City, and Jillian joins us with the Fox News Alert.
That's right. Good morning. So let's start with this story. The fast-moving brush fire erupting overnight, threatening homes in San Bernardino County, California. The National Guard called in to help search for hundreds missing in the wildfires. At least 50 people have died statewide, 48 of those deaths coming from the Camp Fire in Northern California. Firefighters are gradually gaining control of several wildfires burning right now. The Woolsey fire outside L.A. is expected to be fully contained by Sunday. We now know the CIA considered using a drug that acted like a truth serum on terror suspects after 9/11. A newly released report reveals the agency looked into drug-assisted interrogations to get information about potential attacks. The idea to use sedatives was part of a research program dubbed Project Medication. The CIA did not end up using it, citing ethical concerns. At any moment, the Justice Department could issue a legal opinion defending Matt Whitaker's appointment as acting attorney general. The choice highly scrutinized. The state of Maryland filed a lawsuit claiming the appointment is unconstitutional and that Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein should get the job. The Trump administration says the president has full legal authority to appoint senior government employees on a temporary basis. And you could soon pay less for health care, both sides of the aisle backing a reinsurance plan in hopes of fixing Obamacare. It would use federal money to help cover expensive customers so everyone else pays less. West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin is calling for the president's support. He joins us in the next hour to explain why the president is the only one who can fix the health care problem. Let's look at your headlines. I'll send it back to you.
All right. Thank you, Jillian.
Yeah, he's also got a nifty name for it, and he'll share that with us next hour.
12 minutes after the top of the hour, key leadership roles are up for grabs on Capitol Hill today, and one of the lawmakers hoping to be the House Minority Leader is here to talk about it. Congressman Jim Jordan is going to join us next.
Plus, one man brought a Trump 2020 sign to Splash Mountain, but the fun stopped there. Wait until you hear what happened next. Key Republican leadership roles up for grabs today in the House of Representatives.
Getting exciting. All eyes on the House Republican leadership race, where current Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy is hoping to stay on, this time as a Minority Leader, and is facing a challenge from Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan. My only hope is to be able to talk to Jim Jordan at some point about this.
Well, I'm glad you asked. We just got him on the phone. Joining us now, or a live shot, I should say, just getting up this morning to come on Fox and Friends. We really appreciate you being here, Congressman.
Good to be with you.
Good to be with you, too. Why would you want to go? I know you all came in together. Why would you want to go up against a friend for this position? Why is it important to you?
Well, I think when you fail to reach a goal in life, there's some fundamental things you have to do, some basic questions you have to ask. We failed to keep the majority. I think you got to step back and ask, why did we lose? What are we up against now, and how do we win it back? And I think probably the most important of those three questions is, why did we lose in the first place? 2 years ago, the American people elected President Trump to come to this town and shake it up, and he has done just that. But I don't think they've seen the same intensity from House Republicans. Did we replace Obamacare? Did we reform welfare? Did we secure the border and build the border security wall? Some key things that we told them we were going to do that we haven't done. I think that was the biggest problem we had, because we lost so many races by the slimmest of margin. If we get the things done that we told them we were going to do, I think we win many of those races, and we would have stayed in the majority. So that's the message I try to convey to our colleagues. And if I'm given the chance to lead, I'm going to work on one thing, doing what we told the American people we were going to do.
Well, it sounds like you're making it a choice between the establishment, Kevin McCarthy, the establishment guy, and you, a member of the House Freedom Caucus, which is famous for trying to shake things up.
I think the House Freedom Caucus is famous, I hope, famous for doing what we said we were going to do and fighting for the things the American people sent us here to fight for. And we got to understand, Steve, the environment we're going into is something we've never seen. This is the world of Cummings, Nadler, Schiff, Waters, Pelosi. They've got 80 investigations teed up, And we're going to have to be prepared with the right attitude to come to this town and fight every single minute of every single day defending the truth as they're attacking everybody. That's the environment we're going into. So why did we lose? What are we up against? And how do we win it back? We win it back by standing firm for the principles that made our country great in the first place and standing firm on defending the truth as all these investigations start to unfold.
So what are we going to see moving forward? You're in the majority for a couple more weeks. What do you think you can get done in these couple more weeks? Not symbolic votes, but real deals.
What was the single biggest promise we made the American people in 2016 that we have not got done yet? Building the border security wall and securing the border. We should be focused on that one main thing over the next several weeks as we still have a few weeks left while Republicans control all of government. We should focus on the biggest promise we made them and what they sent us here to do.
How do you do that?
Well, we got a spending bill. The spending bill, the CR, the continuing resolutions, comes due on December 7th. We should insist on putting the wall funding bill on that piece of legislation and getting it passed. After all, that's what we were elected to do in 2016. That's why they sent the president here. He's been shaking this town up. We haven't had the same commitment, the same intensity. We need to match that and get it done on December 7th.
Can it get through the Senate then?
It's a spending bill. The spending bill has to get through, so you have to attach it to a must-pass piece of legislation. Of course, the ones that always have to get through are the ones that fund the government.
Are all Republicans on board for that?
We'll find out.
Right.
Yeah.
Congressman,
We'll
I know
out.
this is serious because you have your top button buttoned. I know it's got to be a big day because you never have your top button buttoned.
Well, I'll leave it at that.
What do you say?
All right.
He's running for election.
He's got a big day. Jim Jordan from the great state of Ohio. Sir, thank you very much for joining us live.
Thank you, guys.
Yours
Take
served,
care.
Kevin McCarthy. Straight ahead, the media is hyping up rumors about another White House shakeup, but haven't we heard this story before? Corey Lewandowski is here to react.
Plus, remember that $1.5 billion Mega Millions jackpot?
Yep.
The winner may just have to kiss it all goodbye. We'll explain.
They're in South Carolina. Check your ticket.
This program is brought to you by The Frontrunner, now playing in select theaters everywhere November 21st. Critics are raving about
Numbers first. Number 25 million. That's how many people the TSA expects to pass through airport security over the Thanksgiving holiday next week. That's up 7% from last year. Next, $1.5 billion. That's how much last month's winning Mega Millions ticket is worth, but a winner still has not come forward. They have until April 21st to claim the money, and the winner
I
was
keep
bought
calling
in
my
South
dad.
Carolina.
Dad, check the ticket. It's South Carolina.
That's right. And finally, $299. That's the cost of a Keurig-like machine that makes cocktails.
Wow.
DrinkWorks comes from the makers of Keurig and Anheuser-Busch.
Genius.
The home bar uses single pod servings of alcoholic beverages. Each pod is $4.
So can we replace all of our Keurig machines here at Fox with those?
With cocktail makers?
Yes. Maybe we'll have both of them. You can have coffee or cocktails.
I might even confuse it with my laundry pod, and that might be a difference.
Tide pod?
That would not be good.
Yeah, my laundry would smell like liquor again. Meanwhile, 25 minutes after the hour.
All right, the media hyping up rumors of possible White House changes. Here's just one example. Time magazine asking who goes, who stays. Uncertainty hangs over Trump's expected White House shakeup.
But as history has shown us, making some cabinet shifts is nothing new for an administration after a midterm election.
Here to weigh in is former Trump campaign manager, author of the upcoming book, Trump's Enemies, How the Deep State is Undermining the Presidency, Corey Lewandowski. Corey, who has a few positions that the president's looking to change. We know right away the attorney general. It took about 9 seconds for Jeff Sessions to be shown the door. Who do you think is next?
Well, good morning. And I think the president, just like all other presidents after a midterm election, has the opportunity to make some changes going into his reelection effort. And this should be expected. This is nothing new. As you guys just delineated, presidents do this all the time, and the president has the right to have the team around him that he thinks is best going to represent him and move his agenda forward. So I think you're going to see additional changes. You're going to see some people in the cabinet that are going to move on, whether they choose to or he asks them to is one thing. And I think you're going to see some people in the White House who are also going to move on. And I think it's the right thing for the president right now.
Why is that? Is it because after 2 years, it's a very stressful job? I hear he's a workaholic and expects a lot. Is it because it's so stressful and people want to move on, or is it because they clash?
Well, I think it's a number of things. Look, this president is a man who works 18 and 20 hours a day every day and doesn't give anybody a break. And he talked about this in his press conference last week. He said people come into the White House, they look young and they leave looking old. That's very true. I've seen it, myself. I think I had no gray hair when I started working for the president. And, 20 hours a day for 3 years does that to people. But on top of that, the way some people are treated by the mainstream media by and large is very unfair. We've seen that also. But the other portion is, as he gears up for a re-election effort in 2 years, I think he should surround himself with a team that understands what happens during elections. And what we've seen right now is a team that, by and large, has been focused on policy. Right. And with the Democrats taking over the House of Representatives, it is a very different environment in Washington, D.C., and he should surround himself with individuals who know what's at stake coming up in 2 years.
Sure. So he's preparing the White House for working with a divided government where you got Republicans in the Senate and Democrats in the House. Corey, when it comes to people who are going to make the cut and remain at the White House, doesn't a lot of the frustration come from the fact that the president wants to get certain landmark things done? And, here we are 2 years in, and a lot of stuff hasn't been done about certain things. So it's kind of like, okay, I gave you 2 years, time to go.
Well, you're exactly right. And you have to remember what this president said when he came to Washington is he had a giant agenda. He wanted to make sure we're buying health insurance across state lines. He wanted transportation infrastructure spending bill done. We've seen what he's done on the jobs front. He's created 4.5 million jobs in the first 2 years, but there's more to do there. And so, look, if you're not on the president's agenda, it is time to go. But more importantly, with a Speaker Pelosi coming in, it's a very different environment in Washington, and he now has to look and reach across the aisle, work with those Democrats to make sure that he's still creating jobs and an economic environment that is going to continue to move the country forward. And so it's a different environment, and he has a right to have new people there.
Like who? Tell me what positions you think he should rotate out. Just Corey Lewandowski, speaking as someone who knows the inside and the outside.
Well, look, I don't want to get through position by position, but I think you're going to see some cabinet members leave, which is very typical in a transition period. I think you're going to see some senior members of the White House leave. And look, the rumors are rampant right now. Yep. At the end of the day, they're just rumors. But this president is someone who knows the team that he needs around him. We've seen when he wants to act, he acts very quickly, as he did in the case of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. He now has someone there. It looks like, we've seen all the rumors. The Fox News contributor may be considered for the next Secretary of Homeland Security. Holman. We don't know, but what we do know is when this president makes a decision, he acts very quickly, and he's ready for change.
Could you be going back?
Oh, look, I love my job right here. You guys know that. I love being on the outside, and it's the best place to be.
We'll put it this way. The name of your book has enemies in it, the president's enemies. Does the president have enemies on the inside? Because Melania indicated that.
Oh, he absolutely has enemies on the inside. Not only did she indicate that in her interview with Tom Lamas from ABC, but when the president was asked by 60 Minutes, he also indicated that there are people inside the White House that he doesn't trust, and this is a great opportunity for the president to have a restart and get rid of those people who don't support the Trump agenda.
All right. I don't see any gray hair, by the way, Corey.
Well, thank you. You're very kind.
Thank you for being on with us. Have a good one.
You too.
All right. Meanwhile, 7:30 here in New York City and a Fox News alert. New fallout in the Middle East after days of intense fighting between Israel and Hamas. We have a live report in Jerusalem next.
Plus, Alan Dershowitz, the professor, is going to weigh in on Democrats promising investigation after investigation when they take control of the Congress. That's straight ahead.
The investigations are sexy. They're interesting.
I take subpoenas very seriously.
Investigation.
Top Israeli officials.
Trey Yingst is live in Jerusalem with what happens next. Good morning, Trey.
Well, good morning, Brian, Ainsley, and Steve. Unexpectedly this morning, the Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman resigning in protest of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's decision to accept a ceasefire agreement with Hamas. The defense minister, who will be resigning in the next 48 hours, also calling today for early elections in Israel, putting new pressure on the prime minister. The resignation comes amid protests in the southern Israeli city of Sderot, where residents are demanding that the Israeli government take a harder stance against Hamas, the group in control of the Gaza Strip. Earlier this week, after a botched Israeli intelligence operation, Hamas and other Gazan factions fired more than 400 rockets into southern Israel, killing one person. The Israelis responded with a series of airstrikes in Gaza. Now the resigning defense minister is calling the ceasefire signing and previous allowance of payments to Hamas a surrender to terrorism. Now, Brian Ainsley and Steve, as pressure increases on the prime minister here in Israel, Hamas is claiming victory for the resignation of Lieberman. Also something to keep in mind here, with Lieberman's party gone, this could mean the end of Benjamin Netanyahu's rule here in Israel due to the fact that his parliamentary party will only have a one-majority lead. Brian, Ainsley, Steve.
All right, Trey, thank you very much for the live report from Israel. Let's bring in Alan Dershowitz, Harvard Law professor and author of The Case Against Impeaching Donald Trump. Professor, what do you make about these Palestinians who are firing all of these rockets now toward Israel?
Well, Benjamin Netanyahu is certainly not a dove. He's a very tough guy, and yet he has been willing, A, to accept the ceasefire, and B, to accept money from Qatar going into Gaza. I suspect something else is going on behind the scenes. It may be the rollout of President Trump's peace plan, the need to get agreement from the Sunni Arab countries, particularly the Gulf countries. I think there are bigger fish to fry in Prime Minister Netanyahu's mind than simply retaliation against Hamas. There'll be time for retaliation later. But if there are opportunities to bring about a broader peace and possibly a deal with the Palestinians, that's more important than simply taking additional actions against Hamas in Gaza. As far as the elections are concerned, everybody anticipates there are going to be new elections soon. And so I think the resignation of Lieberman is just a kind of foretaste of things to come. We're going to see a very contested election, and one of the issues will be doves versus hawks, whether a peace plan is in the works, and there are a lot of moving parts.
Right, and the Egyptians are helping broker this. Meanwhile, there's the Palestinian Authority and there's Hamas. So you have conflicting movements there, and you don't know if, on some level, the Palestinian Authority wants Hamas pounded. So we'll see. But let's move on and talk about domestic politics. And it looks as though the Democrats obviously have the majority in the House. It looks like it could expand by a couple more seats. And they're talking about a cannon full of investigations. How does in fact, let's listen.
Let's face it, the investigations are sexy. They're interesting.
I take subpoenas very seriously.
Investigation. Investigative.
We are not doing any investigation for a political purpose, but to seek the truth.
So what is it going to be like? You've seen a lot of different presidencies, a lot of different majorities. Predict what's going to be like the next year, 2 years.
Well, first, there'll be a lot of division within the Democratic Party. The extremists will be saying, impeach, impeach, impeach. We now have votes. We can impeach. Let's bring it to the Senate for a trial. That would be a foolish abuse of their newly elected majority. But I do think we'll see investigations. I think the various chairmen of the committees that have jurisdiction will be sending out subpoenas. What they'll be saying is, look, we had no chance to investigate or respond to previous investigations. This is our turn now. So I think we'll see investigations. I think the American public will not find that particularly attractive. What they want is to see progress on jobs, on the environment, on border security. Investigations sound much too much like inside baseball. And the Mueller Commission, report is out there. We're waiting for that. So I think the Democrats would be foolish to devote too much of their priorities to investigating political enemies at this point.
Will they try to impeach?
Well, there will be those within the Democrats who will try to impeach. I think the leadership will be sensible and say, look, it backfired when we, the Republicans, impeached President Bill Clinton. And for us now to try when the Republicans try to impeach Bill Clinton, and I think it would backfire now for the Democrats to try to impeach President Trump. The country is not looking for that, but there'll be radicals within the Democratic Party who won't be satisfied until there's an impeachment.
All right, Professor Alan Dershowitz, who is traveling today, nice enough to join us via Skype. Alan, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And of course, the other news is the president is now debating on whether to answer Robert Mueller's written questions.
Sounds like he's close to answering them.
Which means maybe close to the end of the investigation.
Yeah. The question is, what happens when he gets those answers? Does Robert Mueller want more?
We'll see.
You just never know. All right, 20 minutes before the top of the hour.
Hey,
Hello,
Jillian. Good morning.
More headlines for us.
Yes, that's right. Following a number of stories, including this, an American tourist reportedly stabbed to death while vacationing in Mexico. Local authorities say Taylor Meyer was killed by another tourist in a random robbery near Playa del Carmen. His heartbroken parents, though, aren't buying it.
We're afraid of this cover-up, and we're never going to find the true story about all these unanswered questions. And, I mean, we don't want this to happen to another family.
So sad. The Meyers believe their son died at the hand of locals and that Mexico is concealing the truth. Ben Carson's name could soon be removed from a high school in his hometown. The Detroit City Board will hold a community meeting on whether to change the name of Benjamin Carson High School of Science and Medicine. It was named after the Housing and Urban Development Secretary before he joined President Trump's cabinet. A board member tells the Detroit News those who want the change, quote, don't support the Trump administration. And a Trump supporter banned from Disney World for a second time. Dion Cheney shared this picture of himself riding down Splash Mountain while holding a Trump 2020 sign. He was temporarily banned in September for waving a Trump banner. The park doesn't allow what it considers unauthorized demonstrations or displaying flags and banners. Cheney is now banned from all Disney parks. Let's look at your headlines.
There you go. All right, thanks,
seeing those
Jillian.
interviews with the parents that their son that was murdered in Mexico is in Playa del Carmen. A lot of cruise ships stop there. A lot of us have gone there. Be careful.
Talk about gone. Janice Dean went outside.
It's cold out here,
It's
and
chilly.
we're expecting some snow. And we have folks from Florida, right, and Maryland. And where are you from?
Spartanburg, South Carolina.
Right from where from Ainsley's from, right?
That's right.
Do you know her?
No.
She's just as nice as she is on television. Let's take a look at the maps real quick, because you know what? We do have a storm that is bringing snow, my friends. Houston, Texas got their first flurries ahead of New York City. It's snowing in parts of Louisiana, in parts of Mississippi and Arkansas. They are getting their first snowfall, the earliest first snowfall happening right now. And all of that is going to come on up to the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast tomorrow. Watch this. We could see some snow, rain, sleet, freezing rain, and snow across portions of the Northeast and New England. That's all happening tomorrow. So it's going to be a very messy commute home. Just keep that in mind. Wave to Steve, Ainsley, and Brian, my friends.
And we're waiting.
Tell our friends from Spartanburg hello, Janice. She says hi.
The rest doesn't matter.
Spartanburg is the best city. It's in the upstate. It's great. You get all the temperatures, all the seasons.
Ainsley loves your
I
state
do.
and your
I was
city.
born there. Dad was a basketball coach at Wofford College. It's a great city.
Really?
It's so pretty, yes.
There you
anyway,
go.
bringing back some memories. 42 minutes after the top of the hour. Coming up, one football coach has a message for young football players.
Well, I think we live in a world where people are non-committal. We allow liberalism to say, hey, I could just do what I want and I don't have to really be tough and fight through it.
And that was just a warm-up. Plus, more winning for the Trump economy. Small business optimism just hit a new record. But that's not all. Stuart Varney on that. Coming up next.
More winning for the Trump economy. Small business optimism setting a new record.
Businesses across America, delivery businesses, pizza, etc., they get a windfall from sharply lower gas prices.
Stuart, let's go from small business to big business.
Amazon, Northern Virginia, and here in New York, right outside of the city in Long Island City, building 2 new facilities.
Yes, they're coming to New York City, 25,000 jobs, a couple of $1 billion worth of investments, and it's a real interesting debate going on here. Did New York City give away too much to attract a very wealthy company?
They gave away a lot.
They gave away a lot. $1.7 billion worth of tax breaks, hundreds of millions more coming from the city. Amazon does not have to build new housing. They don't have to employ locals, and they're going to get a helicopter pad for Jeff Bezos to land on it. I mean, how about that?
He needs one, and he could never afford it on his own. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a Democratic superstar, says this, and she's from Queens. Amazon is a billion-dollar company that the idea that it will receive hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks at a time when our subway is crumbling and our communities need more investment, not less, is extremely concerning to residents here.
Look, the young lady does not understand growth. You got to grow a business. She doesn't understand growing a business. You got to put money in to get money out.
And some of the
She
money
doesn't
does go to
understand that.
infrastructure, right?
Oh, absolutely it does. Infrastructure. I think they're building a new high school.
They're going to build a new school. But the price per job is something like $48,000 per job that New York is giving up in tax breaks.
Actually, it's $61,000 per job in New York City, which is a very stiff price. I think it's worth it. Because to bring in a company like that, with all that money and
How can you say no
jobs,
to a company like
what
that?
Are you going to say
Right.
no? Go someplace else?
So if they're giving up $60,000 per employee, what does the average employee make there?
I don't know. I simply don't know what kind of employees they're going to be. I don't know the answer.
I do know this. We did get bad news. U.S. budget deficit grew at $100.5 billion, up 62% from 2017 in October. We got to get a hold of this spending. Don't you agree?
You're going off at a tangent here, aren't you? You're having a go at me on the deficit.
No, but part of the formula is the deficit.
Okay, well, listen to this. You wait until the first quarter of next year, like April 15th. The 1%ers, and lots of them, who live in high-tax states, they won't be getting a tax refund like they used to. They may be paying more in tax. You just wait for the first quarter of next year. The inflow of money to the Treasury is going to be much bigger than you think, and that will tamp down on the deficit.
All right.
You heard it here first.
All right. And we're going to hear more about it on Barney and Company.
You most certainly are.
Thank you,
yes.
Stuart. All right. Meanwhile, still ahead, one college football coach has this message to young football players.
There's a lot of entitlement. I'm a firm believer in the snowflake. I'm talking about every millennial young person.
Comedian Chad Prather says he's right, and today's kids are missing one important quality. The answer comes up next.
Nothing to laugh about. A new NCAA rule allowing students, athletes to transfer schools, and it has Oklahoma State coach Mike Gundy calling out liberalism.
Well, I think we live in a world where people are non-committal. We allow liberalism to say, hey, I can just do what I want and I don't have to really be tough and fight through it. And today there's a lot of entitlement. I'm a firm believer in the snowflake. I'm talking about every millennial young person, Generation Z, I think is what they call them. That's the world we live in, because if they say, well, it's a little bit hard, then we say, okay, well, let's go try something else.
Here to react is comedian and host of the Chad Prather Show, Chad Prather himself. Hey, Chad, thanks for being with us.
Good morning, guys.
Good morning. All right, so I understand what he's saying, but I also understand if you're a player and you're on a team and you're not getting a lot of opportunity to play and you only have so many years, you might want to switch to a school where you can play more. What are your thoughts?
Well, I know that college coaches tend to do that whenever they're offered a better opportunity or more money. They tend to jump ship a little bit. But you're right. I mean, there's only so much eligibility you can get. But I think I understand what Coach Gundy's saying in that regard, although I don't think I would shift the blame to liberals. And I personally have gotten to a point, even though I sing a song about snowflakes on my comedy tour, I'm actually sick of the term snowflakes, and I think everybody has kind of gotten tired of that deal. But, you know, I get what he's trying to say, and that is we have developed more a culture of people who are wanting to just stop and move on when things get a little bit difficult.
Right,
There's
so
no
you get
endurance
benched
anymore.
Right, Chad, so you get benched. Instead of fighting your way back into the lineup or trying to perform better in the clutch, you go, I'm just going to change schools. And that's his point of view.
It is. You know, my late father, he used to tell me all the time, because I used to threaten to quit football every season, and he said, no, you don't have to play next season, but you're going to finish this season. So I think you got to hang in there like a hair in a biscuit, you know, in a Southern diner. I mean, you got to have some stickability, man. You know, I mean, that thing where, you know, what happened to that where you're just going to pop back up and you're going to keep going, you're going to work harder, and you're going to fight to earn that position. And I think that's what Coach Gundy's trying to say. But you know what? Hey, look, you got to admire the mullet on Coach Gundy. That is commitment. That's endurance right there. That takes time, and you really got to endure to do that. I wish I could do it. I
was going to say, a lot of them are jealous. Who knows what he got?
Yeah, beautiful mullet, Coach.
Well, there you go. Well, Chad, times have changed. People are different now, it looks, than when we were growing up.
Yeah, you know, we used to walk to school uphill both ways, 3 miles in the snow and those kind of things. And, you know, we'd have to, you know, travel on horseback to get, you know, to church on Sunday morning. But these days we have our smartphones. We've got our, you know, we've got our, we can just go on our hoverboards and go to the bus stop these days.
Life is so much easier.
Your dad was like all of our dads.
Yeah.
The Prathers never quit, right? Not allowed to.
No, they never quit. That's that ethic. It's hard work. You got to have it.
You do indeed. All right. Thank you,
Great
sir.
to see you.
All right.
Coming up in the next hour, we have a news alert, and the first wave of the migrant caravan is here. It's now at our